Every once in a while we get a set of scriptures that just strike me as kind of strange and weird, so contradictory. Today's filled with blessings and curses. That's what it's all about. When you go home today in the car and you're talking with each other, you might say, what did you hear today? And you say, gosh, I heard a lot of blessings and curses. What kind of good news is that? Seems strange. But oddly enough, it really is a very central theme in our faith. You know, the Psalm says in the first reading, blessed are those who trust in the Lord. And even tells us, advises us, don't put your trust in princes. Don't put your trust in man or woman. Put your trust in God. But of course it doesn't mean that quite so simply. Of course we should trust one another, especially people we respect and think that they have some wisdom. Of course we ask their advice. How come this goes so well for you? And we listen to them and they tell us their outlook on it and we say, wow, that's good advice. What a blessing. So God isn't saying, Jesus isn't saying don't trust one another. But he is saying, I think, at the deepest level, especially when there is strife and there are problems in our lives, that's when we need to dig down deep and find our trust in God and look for and listen to what God will speak in our hearts. It's strange. This is a description of the curses. Blessed are those, he says, who are poor, who are hungry, who are weeping, who hate, exclusion, insult, denounced. Really? There's blessing in that? And then he speaks the blessing bluntly, says, God promises there will be kingdom and satisfaction and laughter, rejoicing, reward, and joy, a place in heaven. Well, what is this contradictory message? How do we find blessing in all those negatives that were listed in the scriptures today? Well, it seems to me that that is where we need God most. When we can't seem to pull it together or figure it out, when we seem stuck in a place, and we often go and look in all the wrong places for answers, when the answers, I think, lie deep within us in our relationship with God. And when we struggle most, health issues, marital issues, financial issues, job issues, friendship issues, that's where we need to go and figure it out with God and ask very bluntly, very directly, God, what are you saying? What do I need to do? How do I need to walk through this? Because if we don't search it out, and if we don't listen deeply, we listen superficially, and we go for the quick answer. Years ago, with 3 other priests, we bought a house up in Leiker, and we got a great deal, so we paid mortgages forever until we sold it. But used to go up at least 2-3 times a month, and it was so wonderful, but it's a kind of a treacherous road, a lot of winding, narrow, and often enough, especially after rains like this week, boulders would fall down onto the road. And so it was particularly treacherous to drive home at night, not knowing if you're going to come around a curve and suddenly there's a boulder and then you rip out the bottom of your car. It only happened once to us. But it was always there as a kind of a threat. It just wasn't wise to drive down that road real fast. But the reward of going up that treacherous road was getting to this cabin and looking at this forest that was gorgeous in the sky. And when there was snow up there, in the trees all over the place, it was just beautiful, just beautiful. And it seems to me kind of a symbol, or, we can look at that road and the road of life that we all travel. And there's a lot of inner and inward struggle. And so we face it. Now, there was a comedian, she since has died, but she had a little advice that she'd always say. She'd always say, get over it, get over it. And that was her advice to people who would get stuck in a place and not know how to get out, and actually would make it worse by the way that they would get stuck. So today, this Word of God is very simple on one level. It says we need to listen deeply. Listen. And I'm afraid many times we're not good listeners, even to each other when we hear the voice. But when the voice is in silence, and the voice comes to us strangely, right in the middle of our suffering, we begin to hear love. We begin to feel a spirit. That's what the Scriptures advise us today to be attentive to get trained to listen deeply, so that there we can hear the voice of our God.